and tough terrain you all have shot the film. Tell me about it.
So the process of playing the character is actually deeply intertwined with the process of actually adapting it into a feature film narrative. Uh, because the book that Benjamin has written is based on a real life that Mr. Najib has lived, and the film that Blessy has made is based on the book that Benjamin has written. So much like the book is an encapsulated version of the experience that the man has lived through, the film can only always be an encapsulated version of the literature on paper. Because the thing with literature on print is that you have the liberty of micro detailing. So you can detail every single moment in the character arc when you're writing it down. If we were to make a film that would then capture every detail that is written, this would at the very least be a 10-hour long film. So I think at the very beginning, Blessy told me what I'm trying to do is not recreate the book, but what I'm trying to do is try and make the audience feel what I imagine Najib must have felt. And that was a cornerstone of designing the performance arc as well. I realized at the beginning that the character is so complex and the arc has got so many crests and troughs that it is going to be okay, that it is going to be impossible for me to look at it as one giant character arc. I'll have to break it down in my mind. So Blessy and me decided that we are going to break down the narrative into three parts. Uh, of course, there is one part that is not included in these three, which is who he was before he lands up in the desert, what he was back in Kerala, what he used to do, his family, what did he leave behind before he gets trapped in the desert. So that is one part of his life that will come to you in little pieces, segments of flashbacks in the first half of the film. But that aside, I think Blessy had this wonderful idea that we have to break down the narrative into three phases. So the three phases, phase one is when he lands up in the desert and he realizes that he's stuck. That first phase of actually trying to fight the circumstances and trying to find a way out, and the phase of denial where he's thinking, no, this can't be, I have to get out of this place. And the performance is metered to that emotional graph where he's just not ready to believe that this is happening. So the performance is metered like that. Then the narrative breaks at one point, and then you see him a few months later. Where he's slightly thinner, his hair is grown, his beard is grown, and he's angry. He's angry because that's a phase where he's questioning everything about his predicament. The biggest question in his mind is, why me? And he's angry at himself, he's angry at the circumstances, he's angry at God. And so the performance is metered to that in that one phase. And then the narrative breaks at another point, and then you meet this man 3 years later, where he's completely different. He's no longer the man who you saw. He is more animal than man, because for the last 3 years, the only conversations he's had, are with the animals. So then you meet this broken man who's now come to terms with the fact that this is something he will have to live through. And he will have to go to the other end of this experience. And the other end of it might be death, might be escape, might be salvation. But he's almost come to terms with a spiritual realization that this is something that he's meant to live through. So then the performance is metered to that. So that's the way I broke down the character arc in my mind. And this was a discussion that Blessy and me have had over many days, many months actually. And I should thank him for letting the actor's interpretation take so much space into the style of filming, because he did actually then design the way he filmed the entire film on this classification that I just told you about.
Beautiful.